Want to see how to turn hours of boring phone calls into an automated task? This AI system can save real estate agents hundreds of hours by handling one of the most tedious jobs, client data verification. In this video, I'll show you exactly how I built an AI phone system that calls clients, verifies their banking details, and catches costly mistakes, all without human intervention. The best part is you can adapt this system for any business that needs to verify customer data. So, after a property sales settlement, the real estate agent needs to verify some information with the client to avoid errors and money going into the wrong place. Things like seller's full name, address, and bank account details. Here is how it typically works. The real estate agent will get the seller's information before the sale, typically through physical form or sent via email. They will enter this data into the system. However, as these transactions are high value and at risk of scams, they need to double check the data through a different channel, typically over the phone. If there are any discrepancies, they need to be reconciled. This is tedious, repetitive work and simply expensive due to the number of hours of work involved. But an AI agent can do it quickly, reliably, and at a fraction of the cost. Here is a quick demo.
This is Charlie from Big Building Real Estate. Am I speaking with Ivan?
Yeah, it's Ivan here.
We're happy that the sale has gone through and just need to double check some details before depositing the funds into your account.
Sure.
Do you have your bank account details handy?
Yeah, I've got them here.
Great. Could you start by spelling your first name for me, please?
Sure, it's Ivan, I-V-A-N.
Thank you, Ivan. Now, could you please provide your middle names?
No middle names.
Got it. No middle names. Now, could you please tell me your last name?
It's Gallic.
Thank you. Just to confirm, could you please spell that for me?
Sure, it's G-A-L-I-C.
Thank you for that. So, your last name is spelled G-A-L-I-C.
Yep.
Next, could you please provide your address?
Sure, it's 1 Clear Street, Mansfield, 2342, New South Wales.
Just to confirm, your address is 1 Clear Street, Mansfield, 2342, New South Wales. Is that correct?
Yep, that's correct.
Thank you for confirming. Now, could you please provide your BSB?
012454.
Just to confirm, your BSB is 012454. Is that correct?
Yep.
Thank you. Lastly, could you please provide your account number?
Sure, it's 032 453 534.
Just to confirm, your account number is 032453534. Is that correct?
Yep.
Thank you for your time, Ivan. Have a great day.
So the AI agent made the call and it went through the fields it needed to get one by one. You heard what it sounds like when it's not sure it got the correct information, where it goes back and confirms. And after the call, the agent updates the record, in this case flagging it as verified, and records the data as collected. Had I provided incorrect data, as I'll demonstrate later, it would have marked it as a discrepancy for a human to reconcile later. And now, here's how it's built. Let's start with a high-level overview. First, we start with a schedule. In my case, I'm running this once per day at 10 a.m. every working day. On schedule, workflow automation is triggered. This will simply pull the rows from the database, in this case that's a Google Sheet, and see if there are any new contacts to call. If there are, for each of them, we'll trigger a call through Vapi. There, we've got an AI voice agent which will call the person and collect requested data. We need their name, address, and bank account details. Once the call has completed, the transcript is sent to another workflow automation. Here, we will extract the data from the transcript and then compare that with what we've got in the database. If they match, we'll mark the record as verified. Otherwise, we'll mark it as having a discrepancy so it can be reconciled by a human. We also store the data for the from the call for reference. And as a bonus, we'll also handle the situation where the user can't speak right now and requests a callback. Now, let's dig into this in more detail. So first, we've got our database holding user data. This is the information the user provided before and what we'll use for comparison with the data from the call. I've broken the address into components to make it easier to compare because an address can be written in many different ways. So we want to make sure we correctly compare it regardless of whether, say, the postcode is specified before or after the state, for example. So that was our database. Next, we have our kickoff automation, and it runs on a schedule. It will go through the records in the spreadsheet and give each customer a call. So here I've got it set up to run every weekday from Monday to Friday at 10 a.m. Once triggered, it goes and fetches all the rows from the Google Sheet. After that, we filter the rows. So we only care about the records where we haven't called the customer yet or they requested a callback. So here we check whether the verification status is either not called or verification status is needs callback and the date, the time where the callback is scheduled for has passed. So if the data passes the filter, we'll make an HTTP request to Vapi to trigger the actual call. In here, we need to provide the assistant to run, the phone number to be called, and also the first name so they can say, hello, is this Mark or Ivan or whatever it is. Because every call is the same otherwise, we don't need any additional information here. So once this request is made, Vapi will initiate the call as you have heard earlier. Now in Vapi, we've got the agent set up. The agent is instructed to verify the information given by the customer. As you heard in the example, if something doesn't match, it will double check with the customer to make sure there are no errors. The whole point of this verification is to receive the same data in two different ways. So one way was probably an email, maybe a paper form, and the other one is this call. So we don't want to match the data on the call. We just need to collect it and then do the comparison. So the instructions here are pretty simple. We have a greeting. We confirm that we're speaking with the right person. We specify the information that needs to be collected. Then there's the process. So the first part of the process is making sure that the person on the phone is the person we need to speak with. So there's a few instructions here that describe what happens if it's not the correct person. So once we know we do have the person on the phone, we give them a little bit of a context on what this call is about. And then there's the part where we ask them if they have the information and if they have time to speak. If either of those is not true, we ask them when would be a good time to call, and then we hang up and we will record this information later. They do have the details, we just proceed with verifying the fields in order. Then there's some additional instructions to make sure we get this right. So for example, we make sure that the numbers for the account and BSB are spelled digit by digit. Otherwise, the AI is going to try to spell them as big numbers, and that doesn't sound right to us. So once the call has ended, a webhook is sent with all the information about the call, including the full transcript, which is what we're going to use to extract the information from. So this is the webhook that has been received. That's from the call you heard earlier. So first, we've got an AI step which takes the transcript and extracts the data from it. So here, we've got instructions. We've got a transcript of the phone call. We are asking it to extract the JSON according to the format below. There's some specific instructions on what to do with things like street names. So a street should be abbreviated as ST. A state should be abbreviated with its corresponding 2 or 3 letter acronym. So Queensland is QLD, for example. And this is just to make sure that all our addresses are standardized so they're easier to compare. Then we've got instructions on what to do with the account number, to spell it out digit by digit instead of trying to pronounce it as one big number and so on. We go through the structure of the data we're expecting, if the data was provided, if the user said to call back. We provide the LLM with the current time because it normally isn't aware of the current time. And then we instruct it to calculate when is that callback supposed to happen. So if the customer said, call me in an hour, it will just take now plus 1 hour and format that into a time and date string, which we can use later. And in that case, the output is going to be quite different. So we are not providing any of the data. We just say this is the callback time. So if I run this, we see the output here, which contains the first name, no middle names, obviously, last name, street number, and so on. Because this is just a JSON string, I use this other module to extract that into a list of fields we can use in the rest of our automation. So it just basically extracts the fields. From here, we're fetching the corresponding row from the Google Sheet. So our identifier is the customer phone number. That's the only unique field in that spreadsheet. If the phone number wasn't unique, then you would need another field that is unique. So we fetch the row, we filter by the phone number to make sure we got the correct row. After that, we're checking whether the callback was requested. If you recall earlier in the instructions for the LLM, we were telling it to give us one of the two formats of the data. So if the callback time is present in the data, we know that the customer requested a callback. In this case, that wasn't true. We actually got the data. So this evaluates to false, goes into this branch where we are actually verifying the data. So here I am comparing the lowercase of all fields. So we've got the first name, we've got the last name, or sorry, middle names, which are empty in both cases, last name, and so on. So if I run this, we get true because all the information matches. And then we're going to mark this as verified. So we go into Google Sheets again, and we simply update the verification status to verified, and we also pass all the collected data just for later reference. So if I run this step, we should see it updated in Google Sheets. Okay, so if I go back here, we see that now this is verified, and we've got all the information that was collected in here. Now, just for demonstration, I'm gonna reset this. And let's say that my BSB was actually something different. Let's say it was this. So now the data is not going to match. So if I go back here and I run the whole process again, run this, extract the data, fetch the row, still not requesting callback, and now we try to verify the data. Now the verification is false, and that's because the BSB that I provided doesn't match with what's in the spreadsheet. So if I run this other part is just going to do the same as here. We're just going to mark it as having a discrepancy. So if I go back into the spreadsheet, I can see that now it's been marked as discrepancy, and we've still collected all the data. Now I've reset all the data, and the final step is just to show what it looks like if the user says they can't talk right now or they don't have the details. So I'll go back here and I will run this in order to trigger the call. So I've got the call here.
This is Charlie from Big Building Real Estate. Am I speaking with Ivan?
Yeah, it's Ivan here.
We're happy that the sale has gone through and just need to double check some details before depositing the funds into your account.
Sure, but I'm really busy right now. Can you call me a bit later?
I understand. When would be a good time to call you back?
How about in an hour?
Great. I'll call you back in an hour. Have a nice day.
So after this call, a webhook is sent again. But if we run it through this time through the LLM, we are going to get the callback time instead of the information, because this time I just said it's not a good time and I didn't provide the information. So the callback time is the timestamp. And from there, we do the same and parse the data, fetch the row. We are now checking whether the callback was requested. And in this time, you see this is not red, this is green because the field actually exists. So we're going to say, yep, callback was requested. And now we're going into this final branch, which is recording that the callback was requested. So if I run this, this works in exactly the same way as the other ones. So it is matching by the phone number, and then it's just setting the verification status to needs callback, and it's setting the callback time as well. So if I go here, we see that it says needs callback and the callback time is set. And that completes our automation. So we've got the database to store the client records. For this example, that's Google Sheets. Then we've got a workflow that runs on a schedule and triggers calls through Vapi for any new records. In Vapi, we've got a voice agent that collects the user information, spelling it back and making sure it got everything correct. Once the call has finished, the transcript is then sent to our other workflow, which uses AI to extract the requested data. This is then compared to the data stored in the database, and if all the fields match, we mark the record as verified. If anything doesn't match, we mark it as a discrepancy and leave for a human to reconcile. We store the collected information for easier comparison, and we've also got a special branch where we handle situations where the user can't speak at the moment or doesn't have the information and requests a callback. So I hope that's useful, or at least gives you some ideas for what you could automate in your business. If you've got any questions, feel free to ask down in comments. Thanks for watching.